Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Welcome back to another episode of TA with MK. My name is MK, and the reason for that cheesy little intro is just kind of getting myself hyped or psyched up to go out to karaoke tonight. Me and the wife going out to celebrate Halloween. We're not dressing up or anything. Actually, my wife is pregnant. We're having a baby, which is exciting. So we decided just to go out and see some friends, but of course we're not drinking, or at least she's not drinking. I probably will partake a little bit, but Halloween's officially on Monday. Happy early Halloween to those of you that are following my channel and those of you that will be celebrating Halloween. But this weekend they're celebrating it at the bars, doing the karaoke and things of that nature. So we're gonna go out tonight, try to have a good time. So I figured before we go out, we'd get a quick video in, just kind of giving you guys an update on the DXY, an update on Bitcoin, kind of what I see price action potentially doing over the course of the weekend and going into next week. And as always, if you guys are enjoying the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK. Gents and ladies, no time to waste. Don't be afraid, it's time to trade. Let's start your brains like high-speed trains. Storm these days like hurricanes. It's time to save this herd this days. Put on your cape and learn the phrase. It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hop over here to everyone's favorite chart, which is the DXY. Just kidding, of course, but it has kind of been the hot topic. Of course, even myself, obviously making a video on Sunday speaking about the DXY, it kind of seems like it has been the hot topic in crypto, but rightfully so. I think a lot of YouTube channels, a lot of YouTubers like myself maybe that are newer overall to trading. I mean, I've only been trading for a little under 2 years now, and definitely someone like myself that's new to economics and the economy and the things going on. This is not something that 2 years ago I would have even known what it was. Now, I'm speaking mostly for myself, but I'm sure there's a handful of YouTubers similar to myself where this is all kind of just new to them. I have a friend, a fellow YouTuber, his name is SkyFi. I'll leave a link in the description for his channel because I've always loved the dude. It's Alpha Commissions. Now, he is somewhat of an expert. I don't know if he would proclaim himself to be an expert, but I will proclaim for him that he is somewhat of an expert as it relates to the economy and things going on in the world. A lot of these things that I speak about on my channel that, to be honest with you, I'm just kind of learning as I go, passing them along to you. But just so you know, to be very upfront, I am not an expert at any of these things. At the end of the day, what I do feel like I have the best grasp on as it relates to trading is just TA and charts specific. Some of these other things going on in the world that affect these charts, I am not an expert, nor would I ever claim to be. So I just thought I'd kind of share that with you real quick, just in case you are a newer subscriber to my channel. And when I talk about these things, if you wonder why I don't dive into more depth as to what may or may not move this, outside of just regular TA, that's the reason. Really, the only thing I feel comfortable talking about on my channel for the most part is just technical analysis, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what my channel is geared towards. So in the video that I made on Sunday, I believe it was Sunday that I made a full-length video. It may have been Monday or Tuesday. To be honest with you, I can't quite remember, but I think it was this past Sunday. We were speaking about this on the daily chart, these three different trend lines that ever since the DXY have been going parabolic. You kind of had, if my head's not in the way, you had this trend line that kind of started in May of last year, and it bounced off that trend line clear up until the beginning of this previous year, or this year that we're in now, sorry, in late January, early February. Then it went on a little bit steeper incline, found support on that trend line, and ultimately the one that we focused on in our previous video was talking about this even more parabolic trend line, which I'm about to sneeze. I apologize. Oh, jeez Louise, the sneeze. Anyway, sorry about that. And we were talking about we needed to see that break down for some relief in the market, and of course Bitcoin would follow. And so far so good. It did break down as of the 25th. We spoke about the potential of a small bounce on the 50 moving averages, which it did actually not bounce. In fact, it went below those and is currently looking like it wants to find resistance on them. Doesn't mean that it will. It may just be that DXY doesn't have a ton of respect for the 50 moving averages. It did on the way up. It's been using those as support the entire time it's been in its parabolic uptrend. In fact, just for perspective, the DXY has been above the 50 moving averages basically since February of this year. In fact, even when it did lose it briefly back here, it always regained it rather quick. So really, it's been above it the majority of ever since June of last year. But if you want to get real technical, it lost it a couple of times here between early January and February of this year. But then it regained it, and ever since then, as it's been going parabolic, the DXY that is, it's been above the 50 moving averages, which is my pink and red lines on my chart, red being the 50 SMA, pink being the 50 EMA. At any rate, we talked about the potential of them acting as support. They have not. However, if we can use that, if they will act as resistance, which I think it'll take another day or two to really confirm that, and as we go into the weekend, we really want to kind of track this more on Monday. But the two scenarios I'm looking out for is a potential retest of the 21 moving average, which would also be a bearish retest of this previous trend line, right? The 21 being this white moving average on my chart, in case that wasn't clear. And there's some confluence there that if it were to trend up over the next few days, or first few days of next week anyway, we could see something like the DXY going back up as high as maybe even 112, which would be a short-term pullback, or which would lead to a short-term pullback in Bitcoin, which we'll talk about in just a second. But at that point, we would expect this to get rejected and continue to roll over. That would be scenario A, which to me, I will say right now, is the most likely. I do think when you have a move like this, which is a good thing, we have a high, sorry about that, we have a high here, we have a low, we have a lower high, which is what I spoke about in my last video, and now we have confirmed a lower low. So this is the beginnings of kind of a trend reversal, right? However, these things can take time to play out. And, it's hard to say that these trend lines are valid at this point because you only have a couple touches, but you can kind of imagine that as price action begins to potentially change trend, at least in the short term, this isn't any sort of a macro reversal we're calling here, but if there's going to be a short term to possibly mid-term, several weeks, possibly a few months of downtrend for the DXY, you can imagine that on the way down, you're going to see some bounces, of course. And if this were to be a falling wedge, we could see something like a pump back up to the top of the wedge, which, like I said, could be something like a 112, depending on where it's at when it meets that trend line, before ultimately rolling over and finally reaching our target, which we spoke about in the last video, was a retest of this longer term trend line that it's been using as support ever since the beginning of the year, right? And then at that point, we would just have to readdress it. Do we see another bounce from there, sometime in the end of November? Do we see, potentially that it finally loses that support and we get a little bit of a bigger pullback? Something that I'm looking out for over the next couple months. We just kind of have to keep ear to the dirt, so to speak, and keep an eye out for it. But what I'm anticipating, which I'll make a video about this coming Sunday, so in a couple of days, is the idea that sometime at the end of the year, so December, early January, that we see the DXY at least retest these 200 moving averages, which of course have been coming up with each passing day because they are lagging indicators, and price action for the DXY has been going parabolic, right? But at some point, over the next month, maybe 2 months, it would not surprise me for a bullish retest of those, because it hasn't retested the 200s since basically clear back here in September of last year, right? And at some point, price action does tend, it's kind of like a magnet, these moving averages, price action does tend to want to retest those at some point, and that might be the point where I would call a major bounce back out of the DXY. But in the meantime, just the fact that we are getting a pullback, or at least a somewhat of a reversal on the DXY, bodes well for stocks, and then of course Bitcoin by association. So real quick before we do hop over to the Bitcoin chart and kind of give some scenarios on that, we're going to call this scenario A, which is that we pump back up to like the 112 area, a bearish retest of this previous trend line, also potentially this new forming trend line of resistance. That's scenario A. Scenario B, let me just really quickly get rid of this. Scenario A is to me the most likely over the next week or so, but scenario B, especially in the short term, would be something like this, where maybe the 50s, which we're currently at, acting as resistance, cause the DXY, which is already up from its low of yesterday at about 109.5, and right now it's back up over 110. Let's say that scenario B is that it uses these 50s as resistance, which were previously support, and that leads the DXY to roll over more in the short term and trend back towards this trend line maybe sooner than later. Now, when we hop over to the Bitcoin chart, I will explain what that would look like. Scenario A, at least in my opinion, what that would look like. Scenario A and B for the Bitcoin price. In either case, I think some great opportunities are coming. And I just want to make sure that you understand that when you're looking at something like the DXY on a daily chart, a daily time frame, and then like a weekly, which is really the only way you can, in my opinion, look at the DXY and trade it, you have to understand that these moves take a long time to play out, and you have to be patient. To me, patience always wins when it comes to trading. At the end of the day, the more patience you have to wait for the trades to come to you or for the market to do something that you've been tracking for some time, like I have with the DXY, your success rate will go up if you can just be patient. So keep that in mind as we talk about these ideas. This isn't something that I think is going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours, either of these scenarios. These are things that could take weeks to play out. However, they could be very, very fruitful. Okie dokie. So now we're on the Bitcoin daily chart. This is the CME chart, so the futures trading chart, and it is closed for the weekend. It closes on Friday here in the United States and opens up again Sunday evening. And Sunday is also the day that I'm going to put out an update kind of to the macro, at least the way I'm seeing it, kind of what I'm expecting over the next month or two. Is everything still going according to plan, so on and so forth. So I'm only going to quickly kind of give you some Bitcoin things to look out for over the weekend, as the overall higher time frames, and especially on the DXY, everything is going according to plan. And like I said in the last segment, you're going to need to exercise a lot of patience. But if you're looking to enter, let's just say you didn't enter on the potential breakdown of the DXY, you missed this move so far from 19,000 breakout up to where we're at now. There's two options of how I would look to enter, and in neither case would I really feel comfortable entering over the weekend. Weekend can be very scammy price action, hard to trust. This is the CME, which is why I wanted to show you that it did close above a key area of previous resistance. If we draw it on the chart here, kind of as a zone, as you know I love to do, it's an area right around here. We're going to switch this to green because as of right now it is support, but that area that's so crucial to me was around 20,450. Now we did get a wick back below that today. Really no surprise. It was just, so far at least it was just a retest kind of these moving averages down here, and just kind of what I would like to call a liquidation wick, really, just get people out of their positions. And now the CME is closed for the weekend, but it closed its body at least back above that key area of previous resistance. When I say key area, it's just pretty simple, right? You can see that it was rejected once, it's been rejected twice, 3, 4 times on that little rally back in the beginning of October. So it's acted as resistance a lot. And outside of this one, if you want to call it bull trap or move to the upside that happened in the middle of September, Bitcoin has spent a long time over the last month or two using this area between about 18,000 and that 19,450 to 500 as resistance, or it's just the zone that it was ping-ponging around in. And now what we're looking for is for Bitcoin to try to enter a new zone. Now I have this orange zone at 21K, the bottom side of it, being at 21K, as kind of the first area that I expected to be the first pullback for Bitcoin, or at least consolidation phase, an area that I was eyeing to take profits on some of my short-term trades. And so far, so good. That is where Bitcoin has met its current, temporary resistance. And that's just, there's nothing groundbreaking about a lot of my TA. This was just simple. Look back here. It was support here, support here. So I actually look at this as more of a positive thing than I do if it would have blew right through it. I'm a big believer in price action moving more organically. When you have a breakout move like this reminds me more of like a bull market breakout move, as far as if it's going to be sustainable. If you see something like this, typically in a bear market, at least in my opinion, it's more than likely going to be a bull trap, just because it's almost unnatural to me. It's just price action's been hanging out, and then all of a sudden it just decides to pump to the upside that much. A little bit of manipulation. I can't even remember what was the catalyst exactly for that pump in September, but these I'm more weary of than this. I like seeing that this broke above, retested like it's supposed to, this previous area, and right now it's just above it. Closed for the weekend. We got to wait till Monday to kind of see what price action is going to do, but that to me is we'll put a smiley face. That's a positive sign. So now to finish out the video, we're over here on the Bitcoin daily chart on Binance, because it obviously trades 24/7. The spot trading does, and so we can see what price action is doing currently. Now, just kind of to forewarn you, I wouldn't recommend entering anything over the weekend if it was me personally. But what I would be looking for to happen over the weekend, as far as moves to the upside or downside, which I feel more confident if it happened on Monday or Tuesday, would be a break above this 21K level on at least a 4-hour candle body or higher, a closure that is, and then a retest, which for me, I like to see 2 straight 4-hour candle bodies close above key areas of, in this case, resistance, trying to flip it to support. At that point, you could expect a move up to around 21,000, we'll just call it 700, 21,600 to 700. At that point, again, short-term resistance, probably some more consolidation, maybe even another retest of 21K before we consolidate and, probably push higher up to this red zone up here of around 22,500. 22,550. On the other side, or the flip side of that, that would be your breakout entry idea. So that'd be, option A, and that's the, over the course of at least the weekend and maybe the beginning of next week before the DXY maybe does start to push higher and we do potentially see a bigger pullback out of Bitcoin. That would be maybe in the short term the more likely scenario. Scenario B for me would be if we were to close a candle body 4-hour or above below 20,000. I'm not just talking about another wick like we saw earlier today where it went down here to about 20K on the dot or just under. We're talking a closure below that and then a bearish retest. At that point, I would expect price action to head back down to around 19,000. That'd be a good, short opportunity. It would make this whole move in the short term a bull trap. I know a lot of people are talking about that on Twitter and some other things. I'm not leaning towards that in the short term. I'm really not. I'm leaning towards a bull trap happening at some point next week, at least a smaller time frame bull trap, as I expect the DXY to, as we talked about at the beginning of the video, to trend higher. At some point before, ultimately rolling over and going lower, anyway, but it could happen. And that would be what I would be looking for, is if it does, close below 20K on at least a 4-hour time frame, then I would look for Bitcoin to head back down to around 19K and potentially even a little bit lower, something like 18,600, 18,700. So that is scenario A and B. Those are the 2 things that I would look out for. And I will get a follow-up video or a more macro video update out on Sunday, so be looking for that. Again, happy Halloween to those of you celebrating it, and to those of you that aren't, just have a good weekend. As always, if you guys are enjoying the content, on your way out, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. It's TIMECODES.